few people arriving.
Walking for many of us has become a way of life, but with the amount of talking going on, anyone would think that we hadn't seen each other for months. The fact is that we meet at least twice a week, and the enthusiasm shown is great, and I wouldn't have it any other way. There was a little confusion as to which car park we were due to meet at, but it was all sorted out, and eventually all those going on the walk arrived.
Quiet, quiet, shush.
I hope we all have an enjoyable walk. We have recce'd it. Hopefully we won't get lost in the woods this week.
From the car park, our route goes through Jana Wood, passing the lodge and onto the Templar Way. It then crosses Haytor Down to Smallacombe Rocks and continues down into the Becker Brook Valley, across the Becker Brook itself and up to Greator Rocks. Then it's on to Houndtor Rocks. After lunch we walk to Hayne Down and then down into Maniton, close to water, before entering Houndtor Wood. The path then follows the valley alongside the Becker Brook and the River Bovey, before rising back up to the car park and our starting point, a distance of approximately 9.5 miles. I haven't personally been along this route through Jana Wood before, but it doesn't seem to take very long before we get to the main buildings.
You've only just started, Diane.
This 372-acre site was declared a nature reserve in 1952. Up until that date, it was privately owned. It was open to the public in 1963, and up until 1973, permits were required to visit it. But now, of course, you can visit any time you want to. Leaving the central part of Jana Wood involved a steady uphill climb.
Steep part of this from Jana.
A number of sculptures are sited at various intervals. This one was carved from a living tree.
Up the hill.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's doing her own thing, isn't she?
This time of year is one of my favourites. It can be so colourful, but many of the leaves are now starting to fall off the trees. It's like walking on a carpet.
Beautiful leaves here. Love them. Wow. Very misty out there. On the Templar's Way at the moment, as you can see by the rail track.
We move off the Templar Way quite quickly and head over Haytor Down. Initially, it's a steady uphill climb, and many familiar sights come into view.
Make a decision. Yeah.
Thing maps where I can see.
Hello there. Hey, Tor in the far distance.
While we're walking, I almost feel too hot. But when you sit down, there's a noticeable cold wind which very quickly cools you down.
Getting ready to go.
After a quick cup of coffee, it's time to move on again. We're heading for Smolacombe Rocks.
See Hound Tor in the distance.
Walking across Haytor Down, and Haytor itself changes and opens up to see each of the rocks that make up the Tor. A different perspective
Smolacombe Rocks.
that can sometimes make it far more difficult to recognise familiar landmarks. Today we've got quite a sunny day, and the bracken has become a really deep rusty brown, quite spectacular in places.
Gradually making our way down towards the Becky Brook, over the Becky Brook and up towards Hound Tor.
The pathway leading to the Becker Brook becomes tree-covered and in places is quite difficult to walk on. It's a mixture of rocks, water and mud, but fortunately it doesn't last very long. The Becker or Becky Brook is only a few miles long and is probably best well known for the Becky Falls, which it tumbles down over. From the Becker Brook, it's quite a steep climb. Eventually, the path reaches the top.
Wow, quite steep this little bit.
And opens out into the adjoining valley by Greator Rocks. From here, our route goes down through the valley with a short climb up to Hound Tor Rocks. But just about halfway is a deserted village.
Medieval village.
These remains of 4 13th century stone farmsteads occupy land originally farmed in the Bronze Age. This isolated, deserted Dartmoor hamlet was probably abandoned in the early 15th century.
Hound Tor, our lunch spot. Greator Rocks.
This area must be nearly as popular as Haytor. It certainly gets its fair share of visitors. This is probably because it's so close to the car parking facilities.
What a lunch spot.
And for many people, this is the extent of their visit to the moors.
This is a cracking place. All sorts of legends have been founded here.
It wouldn't be right to visit this well-known tor without mentioning the fact that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle
I'm going to go through the middle of Hound Tor.
was supposed to have taken one of his principal inspirations from the tor in writing The Hound of the Baskervilles, which ties in with the local legends of spectral packs of dogs and even a great black hound.
Wow.
It's only a short distance through the middle of Haytor Rocks, but I think it gives more of a sense of scale to the rocks that make up the tor itself.
I'm going to meet everybody around the other side in a minute. Just thought we'd go down through here. I'd like to know that.
Well, we just said about that. We just wondered if you'd film it.
I'm exhausting. Who else is like to
During the days of the wool trade, this thatched house used to be called the Hound Tor Inn. In other words, it was a public house. This ceased by 1840. The name was revived briefly in the 50s, when cream teas were served.
Let's hang down.
I spoke earlier about myths and legends, and again I couldn't pass this way without making mention of Bowman's Nose, which we passed very close to but haven't visited today, probably because we all know it so well. Bowman is possibly a corruption of bowman, an archer or huntsman. Legend has it that Bowman disturbed witches when hunting. They cursed him and turned him and his hounds into petrified stones. Looking at the rocks around me, they have a variety of different shapes.
It looks a bit bleak out there.
And it's easy to understand how the legend arose. Hayne Down is just about the highest point on our walk, and now it's a steady downhill trek to Maniton. Visibility isn't tremendous, but it's good enough to appreciate some of the views around us.
Maniton Church.
This holly tree is absolutely covered in berries, but it won't take long for them to be eaten by the birds. Or dare I say it, perhaps taken for Christmas decorations, but I hope not. After the open moorland, our pathway once again is enclosed by woodland. And the stony pathway eventually becomes a tarmacked lane.
We're not going across there then? I would have Thought we'd have gone a shot across there.
After a short spell of road walking, we end up opposite the Kestor Inn. Crossing the road, our route heads down a lane and skirts around the pretty hamlet of Water. It continues past the Beckhams and down towards Houndtall Wood.
Bit of water.
Or why it's called that escapes me, as it's quite a ways from Houndtall itself. Walking through Houndtall Wood, the sunlight, coupled with the vivid colours of the autumn leaves, gave a magical appearance to the scene. It was one of those situations where you had to be in the right place at the right time.
Something else.
Quite spectacular. The walking surface down this quite steep track is very rocky and it's always wet and slippery. The leaves make it even worse.
It's quite dark under these trees.
Again, it's necessary to cross the Becker Brook, this time over a more conventional bridge. Our track then continues alongside the Becker Brook itself.
Not too far from our destination now. About another, I would reckon, 3/4 of a mile.
And then the Bobby River, although you only catch the odd glimpse of the river through the trees. We're almost at the end of our walk, which means a fairly long uphill ascent to the car park. Fee and Kath have done an excellent job. You wouldn't think that this was their first walk as leaders. I've no doubt they will now lead many more walks in the future.
At the end of another walk. Got ya!